Welcome, DoubleDM listeners, to this episode about pitching with Nathan from Reckless Attack. I don't want to keep you guys too long, and we also don't have much to announce, but that we actually have the session 0 for Titan's Call on Sunday is pretty big. No, this is not an episode release, but it is the recording of that session 0. We are probably aiming for around our anniversary in February or March for Titan's Call to release, but don't hold me accountable on that. Another thing is that you can still listen to Why Our World Matters 2 and also 1, a world building panel. You guys know how much I love this panel, and you know how much I will shove it in your faces. And with that, there's nothing else for me to do but ask you to give us a nice review on your podcasting platform, a 5-star rating and a follow, and now enjoy this episode 43. And with that, we welcome you back to DoubleDM episode 43. And my name is Emil. With me is my lovely co-host, Niels. How are you doing?
I can't complain. My brain just stopped working this morning, apparently.
That's what they do.
Because when I went to get myself some coffee right before the recording, I just could stop myself to ask you, should I bring you anything? But I forgot that we aren't even in the same postal code area.
I mean, if you have a little bit of cheese, I wouldn't mind a little bit of cheese.
Actually, my fridge is basically all cheese and some milk and eggs. So, yeah.
What's up with that? Why is your fridge cheese?
I like cheese, okay? Cheese is good. It tastes
is very
delicious.
Good as
well.
Yeah, but
zesty mountain cheese. Yeah, the good shit.
The good shit, okay.
Yeah.
I just thought that what I envisioned is like you having a whole cheese wheel stuffed in there.
Sadly not. I would love to have a Parmesan cheese wheel somewhere in my house. Or somewhere in my possession even. It doesn't even have to be in my house. It can be wherever. I just want to own one someday. Because Parmesan is life. Sometimes at least.
Shall I give you a trick on how to achieve that? How to get a Parmesan wheel?
I'm listening.
Steal one.
Nice. Being the rogue. I like it.
What did you expect? Buy one?
Definitely not. That wouldn't be a trick, dummy. Oh boy. Yeah.
Niels, did anything else happen to you this week?
Yesterday I helped a friend design a one-shot. So I witnessed the birth of a new world builder and DM.
The birth. You saw how they were evicted out of their womb from the DM monster Mind Flayer.
Kind of, yes.
Because every DM is the child of a Mind Flayer.
Yeah, it's true. I can confirm. I am a DM, and I can confirm that. But yeah, he just now fell into the hole of world building, and
we lost them.
We lost them, but for good reasons, I think. And he already planned after the one shot, if it goes well, which I think it will, because our group is great.
Because you helped him,
and I helped him. Yeah, and he listened to our podcast. So what can go wrong? I mean,
everything.
That's DMing in a nutshell. You plan everything and everything can go to shit anyways. But yeah, if it goes well, he already started roughly planning a campaign. So yeah, I'm excited.
Interesting.
But that's basically everything major that happened. Anything for you?
No, not really, actually. Because it's only 1, 2, 3, 4. It's only 4 weeks till Christmas now. It's right?
Yeah. The year just went by like this. Oh boy. Where did the time go?
Time is a mystery, by the way.
Yeah, it is.
There is no time, no laws, nothing. It's just Christmas.
I mean, it sure feels like it. In September, we already got some wares for Christmas, and they won't go out until like February. So basically, they're in store half a year.
Yeah.
That's just why This is 3 days of celebrations. Why does it have to be a half
Because it's the most
year?
important celebration in Western civilization.
Yeah. Still, I'm glad I have vacation this week, because from this week on, every store will play Christmas music, so I can ease into it a little bit and get used to it by my own terms and not just get bombarded with it straight away. So yeah.
I think one of the things I need to do before I definitely need to go to a Christmas market before that won't be allowed anymore.
Yeah. There are
I
several 2G Christmas markets.
Yeah,
actually.
I know.
Yeah.
But I mean is I want to go to the shopping street here right around the corner for me, and just go to one of the stalls, get myself some
mulled
some
wine.
crepe, some mulled wine,
Yeah.
and sit there for like 2 hours before those huts will not be allowed anymore because they're gathering spots.
Yeah. If you go there and if I'm around and if you want me there, I'm always up for some
I
crepes
thought
and
about
mulled
maybe
wine.
asking one of my friends to go with me, and maybe next week if next week is still possible and they are there, then I would love to go to just some, because I don't think that they will be still that there will still be something the last week before Christmas.
Yeah, probably not.
And did anything, you also had no TTRPG sessions yourself, right?
I had 2 scheduled, but I fell sick the night before those. So one was one in person, so I had to cancel that, sadly, because we haven't played for 2 months, because some were ill all the time. It just switched around, because when we have 8 people trying to find one time spot, it's kind of difficult sometimes. So that's a little sad, but we will make it work. And the second one was a Curse of Strahd online campaign. So I just sat there and just completely spaced out sometimes. But I was there and enjoyed seeing the roleplay happen from the other group members, and sometimes chimed in a little bit. But they were all understanding and all that good stuff. But yeah. We finished Death House now, so we can get into the quotation marks real story of Curse of Strahd, which I'm excited for. Yeah.
Interesting.
Sometime in the future, we will get to meet Daddy Strahd.
Daddy Strahd.
Yeah, and it will be fun, at least for him. Not specifically for us all the time, when he's going to taunt us, leave us half dead, and then just disappear. But yeah, I'm excited for that. So shall we get on?
We should get on and meet Nathan from Reckless Attack.
The Lords of Gallipae patron page is just as customizable as the Trail of Heroes character creation, allowing you to access different Lords of Gallipae content like character portrait, loot charts, and access to the game Trail of Heroes standard. If you sub at higher tiers, you gain the ability to vote for the next month's big content and access to maps every 2 weeks for you to use, plus access to all the bonus content for Trail of Heroes standard. Check out the Patreon page in the description below.
Check out Off Gods and Game Masters on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, the web, and Patreon. Videos and blog posts in the world-building series take you step by step through one easy and comprehensive world-building process. 3 pre-generated characters for various levels of D&D, and 3 random BBGs for people to use as the big bads of their own campaigns or for inspiration. Many ongoing world-building projects with teaser articles. Off Gods and Game Masters provides custom Pantheon creation for your homebrew worlds as well as world-building consultation. Pantheons and single gods include portfolios, rules for the gods in question, relationships, worshippers, and much more. Any custom work includes continued Q&A support. Patreons get work-in-progress materials, Patreon-only articles, early access to video scripts, ad-free videos, a private Discord, and more as the tiers go up. Off Gods and Game Masters' mission is to help you make the best worlds you can for gaming or fiction.
And with that, we welcome you back to DoubleDM. With us now is our guest, Nathan. Who are you? Would you like to introduce yourself? How did you get into TTRPGs?
Hi, everybody. So good to have you. So good to have my voice projected into your ears, dear listener. I'm Nathan. I am the Dungeon Master for the Reckless Attack 5th Edition Dungeons & Dragons Actual Play podcast. We are a fresh new baby podcast. I think we've been out for like 2-ish months or something along those lines. But our group has been playing together for a long long time, something like 4 or 5 years or something crazy like that. And we just decided, hey, we're having a lot of fun. And also we want to put a product out there because we think other people might enjoy what we're doing too. And here, and then a pandemic happened. And then, here we are with our fresh new baby podcast. So we release every week on Tuesday. We are also just now branching out into interviews just like this with other TTRPG creators in our own cast. And, we're just generally up to all kinds of nerdy D&D tabletop role playing kind of things and just posting a lot of nonsense on Twitter also, or kind of like our main hallmarks. But yeah, so again, I'm the Dungeon Master. We've been playing together for a long time. I actually don't know when I first got introduced to role-playing games or TTRPGs. I feel like it was one of those things where there was just the cultural idea of Dungeons and Dragons, and it's like, ooh, there's cool fantasy stuff, and you get to be these fantasy people, and it's around a table, and you're talking to other people, and those are all cool things that I enjoy doing and I'm interested in, but never kind of took that extra step until I started listening to a couple of podcasts while I was in college. And I think the main two that I listened to, because that was 4th edition that I would have kind of started dipping my toe into, the Critical Hit podcasts, not Critical Role, different, and the Acquisitions Incorporated games, right when they were first starting out, which was so sad and such interesting timing because they just wrapped up one of their campaigns earlier this week. But I fell in love with these ideas. Eventually, I actually professionally was a reporter for a long time. And so I took a lot of journalism classes when I was in college. And one of the assignments that we got was go out and kind of insert yourself into a subgroup or a subculture. And, of course, some people chose a music scene. Some people chose, who knows what. I didn't pay that close attention to everyone else's because what I chose was Dungeons and Dragons. And I decided, hey, this is a cool chance for me to do schoolwork and also maybe dip my toe into tabletop role-playing games. And I went to a classic friendly local gaming store and just showed up out of nowhere and was just like, hey, so I'm doing this for a project. Can I both join your game and also interview you later, maybe? And I played for a couple sessions. I actually, out of nowhere, I met one of our cast members doing that, just randomly, Steve, the Dragonborn monk self. I met him at that experience, and we stayed lightly in touch on Facebook until it was D&D time. But kind of once I dipped my toe into that, I was like, oh, yeah, no, I thought I was going to be interested in it, and hell yes, I'm actually very interested in this. And eventually, kind of 5th edition came out. I kept listening to a lot of podcasts. I did a lot of commuting, so got to really consume a lot, just inject a lot into my brain, and eventually cajoled some friends into joining, and went through all of the terrible growing pains that all new DMs do, and kind of slowly but surely it was just like, yep, I guess this is just what I'm going to try to do at least once a week for as long as I can possibly do it. And here we are today, and we're podcasters and adventure writers and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Amazing. Especially, I wanted to ask, how does one insert themselves into a subculture, into a sub-scene? And then you answered that by, I just went there and asked, and perfect, right?
Yeah, it was really weird. I am either very nervous about just jumping into a situation like that, or I am not nervous at all jumping into a situation like that. And that one, for whatever reason, I was definitely nervous and, didn't know what I was doing, had no introduction. I just saw, okay, cool. It's one of those just D&D nights basically, where it's like, yeah, every Wednesday people come in, they have their character sheets and some DM runs them through them. And I think it made such a difference. The group of people who I met there. Definitely I'm a white dude, so that helps, obviously, just showing up to gaming stores and not feeling uncomfortable. But everyone there was so nice and so helpful. And one guy helped me build a character quickly. And, because I was just going to kind of sit back and watch and play. And then he's like, oh yeah, no, we can make a character quick. And we just did. And it was a lovely, lovely way to just get introduced to the hobby and kind of immediately set the tone for me of, oh no, this can be just a nice time. And you can just have a nice time with friends or strangers who become friends. And, again, knowing that sometimes that doesn't always happen, but at least it can happen. And that makes it all the more enticing.
Yeah. And now you're here. now you're part of.
And now I'm here.
The content creator scene.
Yeah. It has been, I wouldn't say I've always wanted to do a podcast, but like many kids was always like, oh yeah, no, one day I'll write or at least many creative kids, one day day I'll write a book. One day I'll do whatever. I'll, illustrate a comic or something like that. And podcasts was one that I kind of like slowly came into the idea of, but has always been kind of weirdly on my mind, especially because I just ingested so much of them for so many years. And it's, really crazy that it has come to this, because it was really just like we were winding down with our other campaign with the group that I'm producing the podcast with, and I had just been feeling really good about it. I had been throwing my iPhone into the middle of the table to get some really shitty recordings just so I could listen to it later, because I thought it was neat. And I was like, man, I've listened to a lot of podcasts. Some of them are not good. Some of them are fantastic. And like we're maybe kind of at least farther away from not good than we are to great. And that's kind of interesting. And I just broached the topic with a couple people, and they're like, yeah, we would absolutely do that. And then I kind of broached it with everyone. They're like, yeah, absolutely, let's do it. And I'd be like, okay, I guess that's what we're doing. And then again, like a lot of preparation, and then a lot of COVID, and then all that kind of stuff. But we're here, and that's what's important.
So you would say a lot of pitching went around of an idea.
Genuinely, yes. Not only was there a lot of pitching, because I just had a lot of interesting ideas kind of bubbling around, as I'm sure a lot of DMs I'm sure have just a lot of like, oh well, I got to run that pirate campaign, and what if we did something like that, and what if it was like a fantasy noir, and blah blah blah, and like tons of DMs just have that kind of stuff brewing around, and I certainly did too.
Why does he name two of my campaign ideas?
Same here, though.
Yeah. Well, no, and this is something I feel very strongly about, is cliches are there for a reason. And it's because they're awesome. It's because just because there are a lot of pirate campaigns does not mean that it's not fucking sweet to be a pirate. Like, that's it. Everyone, because knowing that it exists is different than you having done it. And that's the beauty of D&D and tabletop role-playing games. That's why I like reskinning monsters a lot, or coming up with my own monsters when I'm running. But there are some monsters that I just be like, yeah, man, it's a beholder. And like, I didn't reskin it. I didn't do anything, because you haven't fought a beholder yet. You haven't fought a dragon yet. And like, that is just in and of itself a fucking cool thing. But that's all to say, not only did I have a lot of pitches to begin with, but, and I'm so actually weirdly thankful for COVID, if I can say that. I don't like saying it, but in this particular instance, it turned out very nicely. We actually redid our whole campaign. We had an idea of what it was going to be pre-COVID, and then we're like, okay, we're not going to record during COVID because we don't have the remote setup going, and it's kind of weird to do an actual play remote sometimes. Some groups do it fantastically. We weren't sure if we were going to be able to, and so we just sat, until basically there was a vaccine. And over the course of kind of sitting and thinking and trying to, fill out all the edges of a campaign and also keep my mind busy during a horrible pandemic, I kind of realized like, ooh, actually, I don't like this campaign anymore for like a lot of reasons, in that, like it's a little problematic and colonialist and a little bit of this and like all this kind of stuff. And so not only did I have the nice practice of pitching all of my original campaigns, I then had a lot of practice of pitching a whole second batch of campaigns after everyone had already created characters and all this kind of stuff, to be like, hey, so could I interest you in this other adjacent thing, please?
So, for the people that haven't already guessed the topic for today, we're talking about pitching.
5 minutes later.
Not the baseball kind. I had to do that joke.
Yeah. I mean, it was a good joke.
Nate, please tell me, what is a pitch?
Yes. So, like I mentioned earlier, just for qualifications purposes. So I've been either in a reporter for a newspaper, or I've been in public relations professionally for almost a decade or something like that. So I definitely first say I'm not an expert, but I do have experience and a little bit of expertise. And so that is kind of a little bit of the qualifications. And what a pitch is, and why those qualifications are important, is the ability to distill your idea, whatever it is, whether it's a campaign, whether it is a podcast, whether it is a new supplement that you've put together, whether it's a whole new system, whatever it is a way to take all the ideas, all the emotion, all of the things that you're so excited about and you think other people might be excited about too, and boiling them down into that little package that catches people's attention in the 4 seconds that you have it on social media or in if as they're scrolling through their podcast feeds or whatever, and making sure that the people who are going to like your stuff know what your stuff is and are drawn to it. And that's basically what a pitch is, and branding and all that kind of stuff.
So, topic pitching. We heard what a pitch is and what it needs to do.
Yes.
Roughly. And Emil and I wrote a small pitch right before the recording.
I'm so excited about this.
And we would like to hear your opinion on those.
Great. I'm sure I'll have many opinions on them. And I'm sure that at least some of them will be just effusively praising.
Nice. So it takes the edge off a little bit, at least.
Yeah, I try to be a relatively positive, nice guy. I think, worst case scenario, constructive criticism, that kind of thing. But I'm just interested to see what you guys have cooked up.
Okay, so I'm just gonna read mine first. It's about a campaign I'm currently running. So This campaign is about a chaotic group of magically talented people and their challenges trying to solve some seemingly unconnected mysteries stirred up by a bored collective of gods of fate.
I know which campaign
Whoa. That is a good pitch. That is a good one sentence pitch. So here's some examples of why. So first of all, and again, just to kind of reset all of this, the goal of a pitch, whatever it is, or the branding or your kind of thesis statement, basically, of whatever your product is or your campaign is to throw a lot of interesting bits and bobbles out so that people who are interested in any of those bits and bobbles will feel that little, synapse in their brain saying, well, hold on, bored collective gods, that's interesting. And that's one latching point, and you provided a whole bunch of interesting latching points even in that one sentence. So you said, hey, it is a magically talented group. Okay, so it's fantasy, there is going to be a lot of magic going around, that kind of thing, at least in the party. There's mysteries. A lot of people like mysteries. It is a specific kind of genre, and so anyone who likes mysteries will be interested. Boom, that's another hook. What was it? It's a bored collective of gods.
A board collective of the gods of fate.
I mean, gods of fate is even that's 2 to 3 interesting hooks all at the same time. And again, it's like, oh, okay, cool. So there's mysteries, there's magic, so it's fantasy, and they're bored. Why are they bored? Wait, it's a collective of gods, but wait, it's gods of fate. What does that mean? And so you're also kind of setting the scene of like, okay, what's this world like? What's this campaign like? There are lots of layers to this where, okay, they're bored, they're collective, they are gods of fate. Like, those are all interesting questions. And I think that already is a really interesting thing, just because, again, you've provided a lot of opportunities for people who are interested in any of the things that you said, whether it's individually or all at once or any bits and pieces of them, to latch onto. And especially if you can do it with a lot of bullet points or emojis or making it very easy to latch onto. But I think that was a pretty good start.
All right, thanks. Just to clarify, I talked about this campaign in some of our recaps already. And just so you know, it's a group of magic users, sorcerers, some wizards, and we are in a coastal area. So the group just gave them the name Wizards of the Coast. Just putting it out there.
So you're saying you probably won't be bringing that particular group or group name out into podcast feeds anytime soon, I'm guessing.
No.
Nope.
Yeah, I was going to say, I appreciated that you were just very silently kind of like nodding or whatever, and Emil was just like absolutely losing his mind silently at just trying to send up signal flares and already trying to like maybe text the lawyer just for even mentioning it. So, two different reactions, both of which I think are totally legitimate.
I already had our lawyer up in the call. We need the problem here. Shut down Niels.
Sorry.
So DoubleDM going into a single DM for the time being due to legal action podcast.
It's just DM.
Just DM podcast. I mean, honestly, that's not the worst podcast name.
Sorry about that.
I heard worse.
Just DM
so far. Okay, so now get ready for the disappointment of your life name.
I was just about to say, there was, I would say the person who was most actually worried about it, or kind of just like, oh, it's gonna be whatever, already went, and it was a pretty solid one sentence one. And then the person who was like jokingly like, oh, it's gonna be terrible, well, it's now your turn. So stakes have been turned up, and we'll see how it goes.
Okay. Chaos is the force that every child of Min knows. It's the beginning and the end of the world. But there may be something hidden deeper behind the veil of chaos, something more sinister, something that should maybe be left uncovered. We will follow your adventures in a world of chaos where your road is paved by it and also destroyed by it. You will uncover secrets behind this veil that no one ever touched before, and maybe not every one of you will make it back alive.
Bad news. That one was also very good. So part of pitching, right, is it's interesting because I feel like a lot of people have a desire to either not bog down people with too much information, which is correct. It's a good desire, but there's a right kind of amount to do that. And there's also a worry about giving away too much, right? And that's even something that we kind of struggled with early on, where we were trying to really, really hone in on what ours was going to be. But I thought that yours did a very excellent job of balancing all of those pieces, because it's really important to set expectations early with your players, with your customers, with your podcast listeners, whatever, whoever you are trying to communicate with. It is always better to err on the side, especially in a noisy environment like TTRPGs, where there is a lot of podcasts, there's a lot of supplements, there's a lot of communities and sub-communities all therein. Is you want to tell people, hey, this is why you're going to like us. And if you like maybe making it back alive as a selling point for your game, good news. Already, that's a check. And do you like the forces of chaos? That's evocative, and all that kind of stuff. And even in your pitch, there wasn't a lot of world building specificity, right? Where you weren't saying like, you will be adventurers in the city of this, and you are going to be facing off against the great demon hordes, and blah, blah, anything like that. That you still boiled it down to here's what it's going to feel like, and here's what's important, and here's what's going to come up a lot. And again, the great part of a pitch is seizing on that kind of emotion almost, and building that picture of like, here's what you're going to get. Just give us that little chance. If you like any of these things, you're going to like this, because being on social media, advertising, marketing, you're not marketing to everybody, right? Like, if your goal is to have everyone in the world listen to your podcast or buy your supplement, it's just not going to work, because people like different things, and that's that. And there's going to be a certain percentage of people who will never like your thing, even not even having anything to do with you, having to do with the quality of it, just because, again, making things is art, and not everyone likes all art. But what your goal is to, again, just like try to get the light bulbs in someone's brain to light up with whatever it is that you're selling. And so there's no point in obscuring any of that behind mystery, or behind not telling too much, because you want to get those hooks into your brain. So don't save it. Don't save your cool shit. Tell people what you think is cool, what's exciting to you. Again, and like world of chaos, just paved and destroyed, all that kind of stuff, cool words. Like, here's the tone that I want, and here's why I'm excited about it, and why you should be excited about it. And that's what it all comes down to.
That's why you guys use frogs, right?
Well, yes and no, actually. So for those of you, those many of you who are not familiar with either our social media presence or podcast or any of it, one of the things, and this is actually kind of a nice case study, where one of the things that we kind of quickly glommed onto, and why it's important to always be mindful of what your pitch is if you're putting stuff out there, because it might change based off of how people are reacting to what you're putting out. One of our players plays a grung, and he is a grung who has a grung animal companion that he rides on, and he also has a frog familiar that he rides on, or excuse me, two frogs. He's not a grung riding grung. That's weird. And so we immediately were like, that's hilarious, first of all, and great. And you've literally created a stack of frogs, and isn't that wonderful? And that was, we knew up front, okay, it's funny, but also interesting, and prompts questions of people, and it's just funny. And like, people will glom onto that. Someone will say, oh, okay, cool. Here's a podcast who likes to have fun, who, especially married with all these other kind of more serious points. Oh, okay, but I still get that there's a tone here of there's frogs, and that's just a funny thing to say. And then our first spoiler alerts, I guess, the first first people that the first antagonists, I guess, that the party faces is also grung, and it's treated, seriously and that kind of stuff and interesting, but also there are a bunch of just, naked frog people running around, and that's also fun. And wouldn't you know it, people like frogs and like talking about frogs and like the idea of frogs in D&D. And that, yep, they do. And of course they do, because it's hilarious and great. And at the risk of us becoming the frog meme podcast, which we still do accept, just for the record, is we put that in every time. Every time we talk about our podcast. Like, yep, we'll acknowledge that. We'll throw that out there because people are still thrilled and excited by it. And that's now become massaged into our branding, not just because people respond to it, but because it's a nice counterpoint to all the other things that we've listed where, we are a serious podcast. We take it seriously. It's not like a haha, we're all comedians kind of podcast. We're friends around a table. And that's kind of our whole mantra. But, so we're talking about like, oh yeah, there's like all this lore and there's a lived in world. There's a place called the Red City of Agmar. And that's cool. And there's going to be rivalries and friendships and feelings and all this other kind of thing. And that's very true to us, but also there's frogs and it's goofy and we're also goofy. So it's about taking all those cool things and framing it in a way that captures the emotion and the experience of reading your product, of listening to it, of playing through a campaign. And when you've gotten a good pitch, that's what that is all. It gives facts, it excites people, and it gives a good idea of what it's going to feel like when you are experiencing whatever this is.
Nice. Well, perfect then.
So long story short, you guys both actually did a very good job of doing it again. And the beauty of it is that it evolves, right? In that you in a lot of ways, you don't know what your campaign is going to be about because you haven't run it yet. Obviously I know you guys have in this instance, but even for us is that we had recorded a couple episodes and I had some ideas of like end game, what it was going to maybe look like, but there's a lot of space in between there. And I don't know what the players are going to choose. I don't know what's going to be interesting me week to week. I don't have that much planned ahead. I have enough that I can run a couple more weeks. But the best part about a pitch is that you can update it, and you need to update it, and you gotta update it to connect with what people are doing or what people are liking about your podcast, what you're actually doing, so that you're staying authentic, and to reach new audiences who, don't care about frogs. Then like maybe, you figure out some other ways for them to get interested in your product.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think I made a post about it, I think 2 days ago. Why do we play TTRPGs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why this medium? Why don't we all write books, make video games? And it's because it's rather simple to create in here, and TTRPGs have a few things that other mediums just don't have. Player agency being one of the biggest. You never know what your players are gonna do. Your campaign is always gonna change from what you expect. So,
hopefully,
like you said, the pitches will probably change for podcasts. For my campaign, right? That is the basic pitch. But if I now look after like we've played already like 40, 50 sessions or something, I could probably add like 2 or 3 sentences more that explain way more the path this campaign has took so far.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the thing about that is probably how do you extract the information you want to have in the pitch?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm so glad you brought it up because that was one of those things where it's like I don't have a good in, but that's the whole thing. So kind of, and this is something that I think about a lot and have thought a lot about, especially kind of being in the TTRPG space, because I feel like a lot of people have not really sat down to do that yet, or at least don't take advantage of the opportunities. If they have sat down to think about it, take advantage of the opportunities to really maximize that, I guess. So for me, one of the best, most accessible for people who are not, PR journalism experienced like me, one of the best places to start is what's exciting to you, that especially as a creator, whether you're a DM, whether you're starting a podcast, whatever, is what's the thing that gets you so excited, that gives you the most energy, that is the reason that you're doing the thing. And is the reason you're doing the thing, again, for you guys, it could be, again, well, we like talking to people, and we like giving voices to TTRPG creators. We want people to get insight into their brains, right? And like, that's exciting. That's cool. I love interviewing people a whole lot. And so a pitch for that, again, that should be part of your pitch, or part of your elevator spiel, whatever, is you're a podcast who celebrates creators, who gives people the opportunity to talk about things that they're interested in and that they love talking about, and hopefully in a way that's useful to other people, right? Like, boom, there you go. That's the great way to start. Or if you're a podcast where you're like, or a campaign. Okay, so what I'm really excited about for this podcast is the tone of this. Like, oh, it's going to be a grimdark campaign, and I'm so excited. That's one of the things I'm so excited about. It's a different tone. It's something I think a lot of people might be interested in, and it's different, and it'll help us stand out, and also just tell people what we're all about. And so again, just trying to think. And frogs for me, I like, that's another example of like, I think people will think that's funny, and because I think it's funny, and that we have this not like ultra serious campaign, but relatively serious, realistic campaign that also has frogs. That idea is hilarious to me and gets me excited. And the goal isn't to make everyone excited about your campaign with frogs. The goal is to reach the people who are also excited about a campaign with frogs, because that's what you have. Good news. Good news, we have that. Good news, we have an interview show where we hear from creators. So people who are interested in shows with about talking to creators. No, okay, great. Already one check. We've moved on to the next metric of, am I going to give this thing a shot? Or if you're creating a new supplement or a new game, you start with, okay, why did I decide that it was a good idea to do this? Like, what's interesting to me about why this supplement is, oh, okay, cool. I really like horror a lot. Okay, great, check. And I really didn't, I thought that there was a space in the D&D or the 5e or the whatever system you're writing it for, or just generally, I thought that there was a lot of opportunities for a new horror thing. Boom, there you are. It was like, emphasize horror. What's the thing that got you off your butt and made you work so friggin' hard to have accomplished it? What drove you? Start there, and then just kind of keep pulling on things. Again, it takes some time. It takes a lot of expertise. It takes a little bit of just seeing what works, seeing what connects, seeing what feels genuine. And that's, I underline that, genuine. It has to be authentic. It has to be actually true about what your product is. But if you can start with, again, what do you know gets you excited, and just show it to other people, that does magic. That's magic to so many people. Just because you're excited about it, it already opens a door. And then if there's someone else who might be excited about it, boom, done. Match made in heaven already. They might be giving you a shot. And then you have a bunch of other little hooks and opportunities to be like, oh, and also we're going to delve deeper into the Veil of Chaos. Ooh, there's going to be a board collective of gods of fate. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. Now I'm seeing where, how you're individual, what the tone is, all that kind of stuff. And you just kind of keep layering it on top of what's exciting, what's interesting, what's unique, and what's authentic. And then you can kind of have an elevator pitch off of that. Obviously, again, that's very simplified, but that's what the process is.
And I think talking about all the do's we need in a pitch, I bet there are some don'ts. I would like to ask you a question about those. What are the don'ts? What things shouldn't be in a pitch, and why?
So first of all, the most important, again, so thankful that you asked that question. One of the most important things that you have to excise from all pitches, all promotions, all anything is negativity about your own stuff. I see a lot of people who undercut the quality of their product or their topic or whatever right in their post where they're trying to get you to try it. And you see, and it's like, oh, well, it's okay that, we had some audio issues, blah, blah, blah. We're just like, for us, again, we're not comedians, we're not writers, we're not actors, and I know you guys have many times referred to yourselves as just two guys from Germany, but when you're talking about your product and you're trying to get someone to pay attention, you can't start at a negative. It's hard enough already to get people to pay attention to you. If you don't believe in your thing, why should they? That's what it comes down to. Again, enthusiasm is so important. Positivity, even if it is a negative or something that isn't something that in certain contexts would be be bad. Again, for us, we're just people. We like playing games. We've played games a lot together. We think we do a good job of it and have fun, and we think we might be entertaining. There's a way to phrase that is, we're not actors, we're not comedians, so we're just like whatever people playing a game together. And like, okay, that can work for some people, but also for a lot of people, that'll be like, no thanks. I have a lot of other stuff to listen to or try out. Or I'm not a professional designer, or oh hey, we know there's already a dragon subclass for this, but like here's this one too, I guess. No. Don't. It's absolutely not. Stop it. You are unique. Your voice is important. You made it for a reason. And everything, if you think about it long enough, can be flipped into a positive, because it'll be a positive for somebody. You have to believe that. So for us, again, we're not just some schmoes who are out doing things. We are people who bring the experience of playing games with your friends to you. And that is our selling point, is we want you to feel like you're sitting at the table with us. We're not an audio drama. We're not actors. We're not trying hard to facilitate dramatic moments or humor or anything like that. We're playing the game that we want to play. And that there's a market for that. It's not going to be for everyone. Some people love, comedic podcasts or improvers or whatever, but some people are attracted to that and be like, oh, okay, cool. Like that's interesting. And it's authentic and it's true, right? It'd be one thing for that not to be the case, but you have to flip it positive. And that's like the most important thing, period. And again, just quickly, kind of the other things is don't go on too long. A lot of people assume, they go on too long and are, kind of just like cause people's eyes to glaze over just because the people don't have that long of attention span. Be genuine. Again, be truthful about what your thing is. Because just because someone clicked play, and if it's not the thing that they think it is, a lot of people are just going to turn it off. So be truthful about what it is. The other thing I would add is assume each time that you're putting your pitch out there is the first time someone's seen your pitch. So inside jokes are cool and a couple other things, but you want to avoid too many of them, and you also want to avoid just a lore dump or something like that. Too much information, too much specific information. You want to give just enough to give a good idea of what you are, what you're about, what people might find should they open it, should they say, yes, I want to be in that campaign, whatever. And then boom, you're out. Don't go on for a whole thread. Don't hand people 5 pages of your new campaign pitch. Keep it short, keep it accessible, keep it exciting, keep it authentic.
Nice. Thanks. And all these things we talked about basically all linked back to a public podcast or a public show. But is there a difference between pitching in a public setting versus pitching in a private setting? Like pitching a podcast is most certainly different than pitching to your friends who you're trying to excite for your campaign. What would be the differences there?
Yeah, so that is a lovely question for very interesting reasons. First of all, I think the process is actually very similar. And I think a lot of those kind of, tent pole parts of creating a pitch are still true. And you want to keep it quick, you want to keep it engaging, you want to keep it accessible, evocative, authentic, all that kind of stuff. I think is still holds over regardless. But you have a lot of advantages because you're not trying to cast a nice wide net. You are trying to talk to these people, right? Like maybe they're your friends, maybe they're just people who you met at a game store, whatever it is, but you have an audience of what, 3 to 6 or 3 to 8 or however many people you're trying to play this game with. And it's a lot easier to pitch kind of starting points for people and have them react to it and kind of refine your pitch throughout, because you can make it a lot more collaborative that way as opposed to just kind of serving it up on a platter to people. And that's a huge advantage. And I think ultimately that's one of the big differences is I think that you can and should be more collaborative, as you can have some nice starting points. You can have like, okay, here's some tones, here's some ideas, here's some hooks that could kind of tickle the imagination. And then people can look at your pitches and say, oh, okay, that part's interesting. Or like, okay, not really that tone. Or, ooh, okay, I like that idea, but what if it was like this and connected over here and blah, blah, blah. And then you can make it much more, you can really emphasize the fact that it's a group pitch, and that it's something that you guys have all kind of agreed upon together, almost a distillation of your session 0 is this is what we've agreed on more or less campaign, or what our game is going to be about is this thing. And again, knowing that it could change, knowing that it probably will change, hopefully will change really in a lot of ways, but ultimately is still about we're all agreeing. And this is something that, again, podcasts should do, collaborators should do if you're creating stuff. All of it is you got to agree on what your tone and what this campaign pitch is. Everyone needs to be on the same page, both to make sure everyone's having fun, but also to make sure everyone's, talking about it or promoting it in the same ways and kind of steering the conversation in the appropriate direction. So again, a lot of the same tips are definitely true, but ultimately, you have an audience of 4 or 5, and that makes it a lot easier.
Like I said, people, right? This goes out as a PSA to everyone. Expectation management is needed everywhere in your life.
Yeah, I saw you guys had an episode about that, right?
Yeah.
And that's the same thing.
I think it's still the most important episode we've done to date.
Yep.
You need to do this. You need to, especially when you're talking about campaigns, the people you play with, they need to know what they are going into. They need to know what they actually spend time on. You need to know what they want, because if you don't know what they want, your campaign won't be as good as it could. And that kind of also translates to an audience, right? You also kind of want to know what they want to know. And that's your target audience, right?
Yep.
And your pitch should connect with that target audience. But is there any importance on finding the right target audience? And how do you change your pitch to fit your target audience, for example, better? Is there any way you can do research on that? And how do you do that if you change your pitch?
Yeah, absolutely. That's another very interesting question. First, I really loved, again, all the points that you made both in the episode and just now talking about expectation management. But it's also helpful to remember that both your party and your actual, content audience, whatever it is, whether you are a content creator or not, it's all audience. It's all your audience. Doesn't matter. Like some things change a little bit, but it's all still your audience. Your players are your audience, and maybe your first and most important audience. And that's just, I thought a wonderful point that needed to be kind of like really hammered in, very clearly. And then in terms of kind of customizing your pitch, absolutely, there's a lot of ways to do it. Again, I'm not a person who is an expert at, kind of finding those specific niches and targeting it, with kind of laser marketing efficiency or anything like that. But I do think it's important to have that be a part of your process, is sprinkling in different things where it's like, okay, this has worked, or this is important, especially if it's important, we'll keep that in, but like, let's layer in some different things. We have done that ourselves. And I think a lot of it is as long as you're being truthful about what it is and are engaging consistently in a variety of different formats and communities and that kind of stuff. The first thing you need to do if you are pitching, if you're looking to customize a pitch for a specific community, audience, whatever, is to be a genuine member of that community, because people can smell it. If you're just here to sell them something, they know people are savvy enough, and we're also not, megacorps with data like a sneaky McDonald's or Facebook who can like subliminally message. Like, people know, and you have to be able to know the community, to talk like the community, to know what the community is interested in and what they might connect to, and be a, even if you're not a known quantity in the community, but be an authentic, genuine member of it, then I think it becomes a lot easier to layer in what that is, where you can say, oh, okay, cool. Like, I really like making maps for my campaign, whatever, right? And the maps are a really important part of our campaign, whatever. Oh, hey, here's a map making group or whatever. Let's see if they enjoy it. But you can't just swing in and drop your stuff and then leave and hope for the best, right? We joke a lot about, dumping and running on our promotion threads and that kind of stuff. It's the same thing, where people will pay a lot more attention if you're interacting in a real way. And then you can just kind of have, eventually, it's really nice. You actually get almost a stable of bullet points to work with, where you only have 140 characters in Twitter, right? And if you have 20 ways you could describe your podcast or your product or your campaign pitch, then you can't fit too many of those in your 140 characters, but you can rotate them in. You even use them several times across a day. You can have all that kind of stuff, and basically just kind of keep putting it out there that, hey, all of this is real and a part of what we're doing. And if any of this is interesting to you, great. And it becomes almost easy because you've already honed in on, here's what is true, here's what works. And then, you almost have just like a nice pool of features about your product or about your podcast, your campaign, to just kind of like throw at people to be like, hey, there you go. That's interesting. Like, think of talking to your mom about your podcast, right? Is like, okay, does my mom necessarily care that we live in a, in a world where there's a deeper veil of chaos and we're destroyed, and again, there's paved and destroyed by chaos and secrets. Like, no, not really. But like, that's all true. What is also true is that like, yes, it's my son or daughter or child who is in this and having fun with their friends, and that's true. And that's that's something that you can be layering in depending on who you're talking to and when and why.
One thing
we
talk a lot about on Twitter, on this show, about inspiration and that you can steal everywhere, right?
Yes.
And like, now becomes my question: when I make a pitch, can I just say this is like this is like this and this combined, but what I shouldn't do is this is not like this, right?
Yes. So I love that question. So there is a part of, and I'm not going to say this correctly. I'm not going to, so I'm not going to try to say that, oh yeah, this is a true actual story. But part of the reason that you see so many movies that are billed as like, oh, it's like, it looks like this plus this, is because a lot of times some writer has cornered a producer or someone, whoever makes these sorts of decisions in Hollywood, and has pitched them as, hey, it is popular franchise A mixed with popular franchise B, and they're like, well, hell, that's cool. So I think there is a lot of validity to doing that, certainly, where it's like, again, we're Critical Role mixed with blah, I think is an okay place to start for sure. And I think, again, as long as that is A, true, and B, is you can say that again kind of authentically and as a member of the community and that kind of stuff, I think is a fine place to start. But I think that it's very easy to take that and boil it down further. How are you like Critical Role? Do you have voice actors? Great. Well, people know that voice actors are in Critical Role. They know that if they like that there are voice actors in Critical Role, great. That's how you like Critical Role. We have a lot of feelings. Great. Like, I think there is value in looking at what you're drawing inspiration from, in what you are trying to emulate, even for some people, or what inspires you, kind of what just drives you, like, oh my God, I love this thing and this is what I want to be like. I think there is definitely some value in kind of saying, hey, we are this and this. I think that's fine. But I think without having the level of kind of psychological expertise required to really answer the question, I think it's more valuable in a lot of ways to hone in on how you're like those things and make them your own. And you can still use some of that when you're interacting with, again, Critical Role is the obvious example, but when you're interacting with people online, is you can sprinkle in that, or you can be sure to visit a Critical Role community and kind of pitch that way and emphasize those things that that audience also likes, I think is valuable for certain. But again, do yourself the service and say we are our own thing that happens to have overlaps with popular franchise, with popular whatever. Again, I self-describe our podcast a lot as X-Files. Like we're X-Files mixed with noir, mixed with fantasy, mixed with all these other things, and it's very valuable, but that's not the core identity in a lot of ways. We have just kind of like continued ripping things out and made it our own, and we still sprinkle in why we're like X-Files, why we're like this other thing, without just saying we are X-Files.
Okay, perfect. I found one of the first notes on my phone I took for actually Titan's Call, our own actual play, of what kind of things we wanted to feel like and what we extract from these things and make it our own, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I wrote down, and this is really just bullet points because we haven't actually done anything of recording or planning for that show yet. So at that point, it was just my idea in my head. So because we were all on a big Attack on Titan hype at that point, when we decided to do that, it was subvert expectations like Attack on Titan, have a problematic world like The Witcher, have the dangers of Godzilla, mainly having big fucking titans around the world.
Yeah, done. You're hooking me. You're bringing me in. I'm ready.
And then the humor of a good B movie.
See, that's I again, especially when you're talking to a group like your gaming group. Mm-hmm. God, yes, absolutely. That's perfect. Again, it's just shorthand, right? For all these other things that we've been talking about, it is shorthand for saying, here's the emotions, here's the vibes, here's the themes, here's what it's going to feel like. Like you said, expectation management. And again, shared culture, assuming everyone knows what you're talking about. If no one has seen Attack on Titan, that might not mean anything to them, other than, it is this part of this thing. So therefore you can say like, oh, well, but I know about this. I think that's a wonderful way to phrase it for certain. And then again, I I think one of the drawbacks is that in case someone doesn't like that property but might like the aspect of it, you got to be a little careful. But otherwise, no, I love that. I think that is a perfect way to phrase it. And again, when you're trying to drill that into like 140 characters for an actual play, then you shear off, you file off the property name and you just say, oh yeah, problematic world, and this sort of thing, and you figure out a way to say it, and you're still saying those things, but people get it. I think. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that was basically also a little bit like, this is what I want this to be. This is how I want to make this game, and then it also devolved into, okay, this is what I send my players. You all know these. You all can get excited, and then also again, expectation management. And now I get to turn this into a pitch. Yeah. Hopefully with the advice you gave me in this episode so far. So we are also kind of reaching the end point now. So is there anything else you want to talk about? Anything else that you think should be mentioned? We should do it now.
So I think it's stuff that we've already touched on, but I think are worth really distilling. Is, again, I really think first and foremost, you have to be truthful with yourselves and with your audience about what it is. And you can be a lot of things, right? And you can mix and match those things, and you can emphasize things depending on who you're talking to, what players you're pitching to, whatever. But if it is rooted in you trying to sell them something that you do not have, it goes from interested to this is terrible immediately. and people are unhappy. So you have to start with being truthful. Even if you're trying to be, if you see an opportunity where it's like, ooh, there's not a product like this, or there's not something like this, you still have to be honest about what you are. And that is so important, especially when you're trying to interact with a community, because again, people can smell it. People know, people don't want to hear it. They don't want to read it. They don't want to see people who are just there to be like, oh yeah, here's my link, and move on, and like blah, blah, blah. Like, connect, be real, be genuine. And again, you have to be your own biggest fan first, and you have to love what you're doing. You have to be excited about it. You have to be excited as a group. If you are a part of a group, you have to have, you don't have to be all excited about all the same things, but you have to agree, here's a list of things that a non-zero amount of us are excited about. So everyone knows what they're talking about, and you can connect with those precious few people who are also excited about those things. Again, you're not connecting with everyone. You're connecting with someone. You're connecting with hopefully several someones who will look at your thing, the thing that you're excited about, and say, hey, God damn it, I am excited about that too. Thank you for explaining it to me in a way that will make me excited.
Yeah, and with that, we come to the segment of shoutouts. Would you like to shout out anything, anyone, whatever? Now would be the time.
Well, I'll start, selfishly shouting out my own podcast. We are Reckless Attack. We're, again, 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons podcast. We are running around in a totally homebrew world. It is serious. It is goofy. We have high quality audio. Hopefully that translates well in this podcast, format, at least decently. And really, again, we're again, my own pitch. Sometimes I get, thrown around on this. We have to practice it 400 million times. But if you like a podcast that sounds good and sounds like friends gathered around a table, coming up with stories, making each other laugh, but staying focused and loving the game that they're playing, we're the podcast for you. Again, we have a lot of fun. It's a weird world. It's a dark world sometimes, but also we have frogs and we have just a lot of fun. And we think you will too. We release every Tuesday. We're a weekly podcast. You can check out all our stuff, recklessattack.com. We're very active on Twitter. Some would say maybe too active on Twitter at reckless_attack. And we have a Patreon where we have a lot of really exciting stuff happening. We just released our own first interview podcast where I sat down with Jonathan, who plays said frog person. And we had just a really meaningful, wonderful conversation about hope and about creating his chaos character and about growing and all kinds of just really wonderful things. And we're releasing a new adventure. By the time this airs, we'll have an adventure available on Patreon and on our coffee page, all kinds of crazy stuff. But we're busy and we're fun. And at minimum, come be friends with us on Twitter, and that will kind of be thrilling alone, and hopefully you can learn more about us there.
Yeah, before we head off, I would love you to pitch the episode to our audience.
Ooh, okay.
How would you do that?
I love that. Okay, pause for dramatic effect. What's the for? Is this just, do I get just like a couple seconds? What's the breadth? What am I working my? Is this 140 characters I'm shooting for? No, it's fine. I got this. I'm ready. This episode is about how to get someone from seeing your stuff to being interested in your stuff, and about connecting that person to something that might be their new favorite thing.
Mic drop. Boom.
That work? Does
Done.
that go? Is that okay?
Nice.
Yeah,
Off the cuff?
that's perfect.
If I had more again, but
Awesome.
also if I had, if I was actually pitching the episode, I would have then been working on this pitch for 3 weeks or whatever, and overthinking and have changed everything. But I think that's what it is. It's about making sure people who might like your stuff know that they're gonna like it. Right? That's what it's all about. It's about just finding ways to tell people, hey, you might like this. Give it a shot. And if you don't, no worries. We appreciate that you tried. But again, it's about finding those few people who are going to like it. Not about everyone. It's about someone who's like, what you're doing? Hell yes. Into it.
All right. And you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at DoubleDMPod. You can visit our website, www.doubledm.com. A lot of D's in there. Weird. And yeah, with that, thank you for being here. Thank you for talking
thank you
to
guys.
us. And hear you on the next one. And bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.